Hi, I'm Sandy Schreck for LBR Educates, and today we're going to create a spiral bouquet that's for a bridesmaid that can be also converted into a centerpiece. So we've got an urn container, and so we're going to make a spiral bouquet that will be able to then be dropped in that container. You can either sell them the container or rent them the container. That's going to be able to increase your budget for the bridesmaids bouquets and to be able to also show them that they can have double use. So let's take a look at starting this. So I've cleaned my florals, and so what I'm going to do is start off with this right here with the C, and that becomes my bind point. And you'll see when I hold the bouquet that I'm not grabbing it with my whole hand straight up and down. I'm just starting with that C as a bind point and then starting to insert my other materials. So when you come in on here, so normally I'm going to be making this right in front of my face here. I'm going to go touch the shoulder and the arm, but going in horizontally and then tipping that flower up into the bouquet, and you can see that that starts that spiral stem placement. And so we're going to come in. So I am going to turn and try to make this sideways, not in front of my face so much, but so you'll be able to see the insertions. So next, come in, go down your arm and in, and then you'll have that placement start. And we're just going to come in with one piece of foliage up in there. And so I've got that side of the bouquet. And if I come down the table and utilize, so I can kind of put some of the different materials that are all going to be on that side of the bouquet. This comes in horizontally and then tips in. So you can see that spiral pattern going. If you look at your stems and you see an X going across, then you're not following that spiral pattern. And that's going to cause that bind point to get a lot larger and also have the potential to crush some flowers. In here, we're going to add in a Helleborus dancing up high, and that's something that has a soft stem. So if I put that in and then tie that, I have the potential or high potential to actually crack that stem and bend that and break that stem. But doing the spiral placement, I'm able to come in and it follows that great line coming through. And the next thing I'm going to do is take my other hand, come in and take it, do a quarter turn or half turn, and then come back. And so now I'm going to do my next third on this side. So I'm going to come back and go down this row of the different materials, laying them in just like I did the first ones. So we have a couple of unique materials that we're going to bring in. So this is Astrantia. So I've got the Helleborus there. We'll wait to put the Astrantia a little bit on the other side. But coming in, adding in some of those foliages. And I know I kind of do this fast, but coming in, so you've got this cleaned, go touch your shoulder, bring it in horizontally, and tip it in. And that's going to maintain that spiral. So if you're grabbing it with your whole hand, you can see how that all goes together versus just using that C and using that as a bind point. You're going to get a lot better radial placement of your materials. So coming in, and here, like normally I would be doing this in front of me, but I'm doing it from the side to be able to allow that camera to be able to see. So I've got a rose back there, and I'm going to come in, See how it comes in horizontally and tips in, and you can see that we've got the different placements throughout there. And then come in with a kangaroo paw, in, tip it in. And so then I've got a selection of the materials in there. Come in with my other hand, do that 3/4 twist, and then come back to the beginning here and add in my materials again. So back to the stock. Let's add in some of the foliages. So now I've got foliages and 3 points there, and coming in and then coming in with that stock, horizontal, tip it in. If you're a little bit less experienced, one of the easier things to do to take a little pressure off your hand, and just for me to make it easier so I can keep turning it and twisting it for you guys to see, I'm just gonna cut some of those stems off a little bit shorter. And so then we keep going on here, running down our line. And so got the kangaroo paw coming in. So you can see I've got a lot of florals, and then I don't have that much that's going into that hydrangea right now. So it's kind of like a dead zone, but I've got a few novelty flowers that we're going to bring into there and allow them to dance. So this is the Scabiosa scoops in Blackberry, and then I've got some of the Astrantia as well. And those are form flowers. And we want to have those form flowers, that visual interest, up in through the middle to add that depth and dancing. And so on here right now, what I can do, you can see I can turn that and just loosen up my bind point a little bit and push it down in, and then that will follow that spiral. And so I've got that good pattern in through there. So I'm able to add a couple of those dancing materials right up on top there. And you can see how those just float over the top and add that visual interest. I'm gonna bring this other Helleborus in here. We're gonna get that tucked into the hydrangea a little bit as well. But so those are some of the things that are a little bit more expensive flowers. And so you wanna make sure that they have a strong presence. Coming in with a couple Leucadendrons here. And if you spin them a little bit as they're going through, and then go down and then just take a look that you still have all of that spiral pattern maintained, which it is. And so now I'm gonna come in. Looks like I forgot to add the spray rose on this side. So come in here and get that in. So I've got the 3 different points in different areas. Add in some of the Hypericum. But so like if I'm looking at it here, I'm like, oh, I want Hypericum over here. Well, all of a sudden you see very apparently an X. So if I want it over there, what I'm gonna do is take my other hand and turn the bouquet toward me so that I can insert it over in there. Once you get a little bit more depth at it, then you can add them kind of coming from the back. So you can see here that you watch how the spiral's going, and then you're able to add those materials without always having to turn it toward you. So we've got a couple things left here and some foliages to finish it off. And then I've got one rose yet, and I'm gonna take that rose and bring him a little bit more up into the focal area here with the Leucadendrons, sinking him in so we have a little bit of a visual path connection through there and coming in. And then lastly, these scoops. And so I've got the Astrantia there, Helleborus here and here. And so I'm going to use the scoops over in this area to just create a little bit more depth and dimension and kind of the dancing, you know, bring the party to the bouquet. So you can come in and still add them late on, spinning and loosening up your hand to be able to make sure they go down in. So lastly, we're just going to come in and add some of the different foliages that are going to support and kind of give the additional depth and dimension. But lots of times I see people, we do classes with spiral bouquets, and they do all their flowers in fine, and then lastly they're putting in their foliages, and they're thinking about where they want it to go, but all of a sudden the foliages aren't following that spiral pattern. So you do want to still continue to spin that bouquet and put those materials in right in front of your face so that you make sure that you're continuing to follow that spiral pattern. So I recently was at the World Cup in Manchester, and when I went to the World Cup in Philadelphia in 2019, it really became so apparent why the Europeans are so much more of experts on that hand-tied bouquet. But they're not only looking at the placement of the floral materials on top. I've seen them looking at the bottom of the bouquet with the stem placement just as much as they were looking at the top. So that was a really enlightening moment for me, and that the stem placement is just as important as the floral placement on the top, to have that professional finish and to really get that great dimension that you get and professional finishing that a spiral bouquet will bring. And so just coming in, so you can see I'm just adding a nice collar of that different foliages. The grevillea is something that is very supportive, and so I brought that in last. Then I'm going to tie it off with some bind wire, and so that's bind wire that I cut already. A couple quick cuts here. So on this, what I'm going to do is just catch that. So I did it a doubled up length. I'm going to catch that with my finger and then come around and around again. So rather than have to go 4 times around, I'm just going around twice and then bypassing, and then I'm just going to have these go the 2 different directions and then just twist that about 3 or 4 times, and then we're going to cut that off and then tuck that sharp end into the bouquet. And so on here, so I could just have the bind wire be a finishing, but with it being a bridesmaid bouquet, I would add like a sheer ribbon or something rather than a satin, because when I put it into the water, then it's not gonna wick. And so on here, so one of the biggest things is gonna have to think about how this is going to look. And so maybe you have to cut your stems a little bit shorter for the bridesmaid's bouquet than you normally would, but you want it to have that dual purpose. and become a centerpiece at the reception. And so when they come to the reception, rather than laying it on the table, you've got these compotes on the middle of the table. So you can see how this would be a really attractive bridesmaid's bouquet going down the aisle with lots of visual interest, and then having those containers that are on the table, instructions for your bridesmaids to be able to just drop those in once they get to the reception, and all of a sudden you have centerpieces as well. So voila. I'm Sandy Schreck for LBR Educates. I hope I inspired you to create some fabulous florals.